Turok, a gaming franchise that hasn't seen the light of day since 2008, has randomly been announced of having a new game in development. But is a comeback for Turok a good idea? Or should it have just stayed extinct? So dinosaurs are really neat. It's something you get into as a child, but it's the one thing you won't grow out of because dinosaurs are just so cool. And as CGI has gotten better, the computer animated dinos we end up seeing looked better and better until somewhat recently. CGI has already kind of peaked, but that's a different story. Jurassic Park for over 30 years has been the center of everyone's fascination with dinosaurs. But after all this time, the franchise, or at least the movies, seem to have lost its steam. Jurassic Park has already hit its mark culturally, and with Jurassic World and Rebirth especially, it looks like they're just trying to push it forward into this monster survival thing. It's devolved from what Jurassic Park originally was, a cautionary tale, which apparently no one listened to. And now they aren't even dealing with real dinosaurs anymore. They're just genetically altered monsters, or even more than they already were. And given what Rebirth ended up being, it's like the franchise now is just trying to be a first-person shooter, survival horror game. But guess what, Universal? We don't need Jurassic Park for that experience. We could just play one of the 30 Resident Evil games that already exist. And as far as surviving on a dangerous world inhabited by dinosaurs to find treasure or whatever, there's a little game franchise called Turok. And I'm sure Universal would love to not acknowledge Turok as they steadily, slowly try to take ideas from it over the next several more movies that will undoubtedly be made. But these two franchises at its base couldn't be more different. These Turok video games were inspired by a comic book character created in the 50s, a Native American who gets lost in a secluded valley that still has dinosaurs, somewhere around present-day New Mexico. This series actually went on till the early 80s, but then in 1992 it was rebooted as this hardcore, post-apocalyptic supernatural sci-fi thing. It wasn't just a Native American lost in New Mexico anymore. Now he was a ripped time traveler who finds himself in a messed up world with dinosaurs, aliens, and an ancient artifact that could destroy all time and space if in the wrong hands. Turok, Dinosaur Hunter. A few years later, a video game of the same name would be developed for the new N64 console, the first game of the N64 to be made by a third party.
You thought they were extinct. They're back.
It was all pushed through by a publisher called Acclaim Entertainment. And someone there must have really liked the comic books, because Acclaim would buy out the comic book publishers who published the Turok comics for like $65 million. And then immediately bought out a video game developer team in Austin and told them to start making that Turok game. They announced it in 1994, and 2 years later it was done, just in time for the N64 to come out. Acclaim had it all planned out. They wanted Turok to be this big new franchise. The game, even though rated M for a console aimed at children, did really well. I guess it was like the one game Nintendo had on launch that could compete with PlayStation's demographic. And when I say Acclaim had this Turok franchise cooked up and ready to go, they really had it ready to go. There was even a little side-scrolling Turok game made for the Game Boy that came out at the end of that same year. And so you know the sequel was already being made. Seeds of Evil came out by Christmas of 1998. It supported multiplayer and supported the expansion pack, which allowed certain N64 games to be played in the same glorious eye-popping quality of a DVD that came out in 1998. Turok 2 also got a mobile game running off the Game Boy Color that came out at the same time. And you know you gotta make a spin-off after the first two go well, so a spin-off was released in 1999 in the same N64 Game Boy pattern. It heavily featured just being a multiplayer game, but better N64 multiplayer games were already out there. And if that disappointed you, don't worry, they still made that third game, a direct sequel to Seeds of Evil, right at the tail end of N64's career, so to speak, before those next-gen consoles started coming out. Somewhere around that early 2000s era, Acclaim actually lost ownership to the Turok brand, and would have to start paying the new corporate owner for licensing. This was the type of company that goes around buying up IPs just to license them to smaller companies. I hear they were ultimately owned by DreamWorks. But a Turok game for the next generation was bound to come out, regardless. And Acclaim had a lot riding on its success, but they kinda messed it up, big time. In 2002 was a wide console release for Turok Evolution, made to be a prequel to the first N64 game. Even though I had never played this, I do get some nostalgia from the box art that it had. It was pretty badass. Acclaim gave it an $8 million marketing budget. Not that it really needed one. I think Acclaim had been so faithful to their releases at that point and gotten enough of a fan base that they wouldn't need all the advertising. They probably wouldn't even really need to stop being Nintendo exclusive, but they decided to make versions for all systems, including the Game Boy Advance. They were probably spending more money than they needed to, which the new license owners probably wasn't too crazy about. The reception of Evolution was actually mixed or average, being the worst receptive Turok game by far. Ironically, for being a next-gen game, people noted the low-level graphic design and long loading times. But of course, Acclaim was already trying to push for a sequel to Evolution. But this time, it didn't get picked up and it never released. It was apparent that at this point, Acclaim was just a burnt-out mess. Not only did they lose the rights to Turok, but also their other high-selling game franchise, All-Star Baseball. And according to those new license holders, Acclaim was not paying their royalties. And there's probably multiple reasons for that. Acclaim went too hard and too fast and just blew through the budget every time. Didn't make enough profits and was probably even salty that someone else got the rights to Turok while they wanted to keep growing it. Well, after failing to make a good Turok game for the next gen, losing stock, and missing payments, Acclaim went bankrupt in 2005. And by then, a reboot to the whole Turok franchise was already in development by none other than Disney, a video game label that they made under their now retired Touchstone Pictures label, made a new Turok for the PS3 generation in 2008. It didn't really have that 80s sci-fi comic book action movie thing to it like the originals, but the lead character, Turok, was now a space marine that lands on a remote planet. All things said and done, it was decent enough to garner a sequel, but it got canceled. Basically because the Disney video game division just wanted to lay people off. They apparently didn't care for a Turok sequel. It's like Acclaim from the 90s through 2002 had already milked Turok for everything that it was worth, video game wise, and it just lost all its value. Around the time of the Turok reboot, there was a 73-minute animated film that the license owners produced called Turok, Son of Stone, and they made a line of comics out of it later on, but it was short-lived. And there were also whispers of a script being made for a live-action version, but that didn't go anywhere. These license owners really didn't care anymore. A few more comics were made here and there, but the Turok franchise was legitimately dead by 2014. But then, out of nowhere, 10 years later, a new game called Turok Origins would be announced during the Game Awards. There's no release date yet, but it seems like a legit Turok reboot is being developed and published by the company that helped Microsoft remake the Halo games for the next-gen consoles. So they're known for their engine to make good visual shooters. A few reviewers played a demo of it, and there seems to be a mix of skepticism and those genuinely optimistic about the return. This could be a genuine comeback that could actually stick around. In the 2020s would be a good time to do it. Action shooters have been back in style more and more since the mid-2010s, the time in which interest in Turok fell flat, and even franchises like Halo were getting tired out. Also, genetically altered dinosaur popularity and dino popularity in general is at an all-time high, thanks to the latest Jurassic World movies. And I wonder if the movies coming back and doing well initially had anything to do with the interest in bringing back Turok. These two dinosaur franchises that had nothing in common are now more alike than they've ever been. And although it seems random, it might just be the result of somebody wanting to take advantage of the rebooted dinosaur survival craze. Acclaim from back in the day knew Turok had potential, but they drove it into the ground and milked it dry. Maybe the Turok cash cow just needed to rest up and get off the ground, because the potential it had is still there. It just needs the right opportunity to properly reboot. What it really needs, actually, is a live action movie or maybe a TV series. Because this franchise could be like Avatar with Native Americans, but no one's looking at the big picture like that yet. Maybe this new developer company will see it through to its full potential this time, and maybe take Jurassic World's place as the center of all dinosaur thrillers. And maybe Jurassic World can step back to focusing on what it actually has been doing really well, making video games, especially with the Evolution series that lets you build a dinosaur park, because that's exactly as complicated as a Jurassic Park game should be. Enough with the movies where everyone keeps making the same mistakes Ian Malcolm warned them about in the very first film. But anyways, thanks for making it this far. Subscribe to Retro Sick for more random nostalgia and interesting coincidences surrounding said nostalgia. And I will see ya in the next one.